What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with reactions to the classics, and today we got a reaction to Bastille. Their album Bad Blood, brought to you by friend, longtime supporter, patron of the channel, Ian. Thank you, Ian. Appreciate you. Appreciate all the patrons who make this thing go. If you'd like to support us in any way, check out that Patreon link below, the Patreon link on the end screen. We could not do it without the patrons. All right, obviously, I know one song off this album. I don't think I know anything else. We'll see. I mean, I really wasn't listening to music that much, popular music, a decade ago when this came out. But Ian says Bastille released their debut album in 2013 and went straight in at #1 in the UK. Stayed there for 3 weeks, going triple platinum. It also had a reasonable showing in other charts, selling more than 6 million copies. It had pretty mixed critical reception, but I liked it, and it was on my playlist for a few months. So it's been like meeting up with an old friend. I was surprised at the number of tracks that I loved at the time, but didn't get into my regular playlist. So I've got a decent amount of research on this one. If you don't know anything about them, Bastille are a British pop rock band formed in 2010. They began as a solo project by lead vocalist Dan Smith, but later expanded to include keyboardist Kyle Simmons, bassist and guitarist Will Farquharson, and drummer Chris Woody Wood. After an independently released debut single and a self-released EP, they signed to Virgin Records. As of August 2021, they've sold over 11 million records worldwide. Get on to this album. Bad Blood's their debut studio album. It was released in March of 2013 in the UK and September of 2013 in the US. That is quite the gap you don't usually see anytime this century. Features the singles Overjoyed, Bad Blood, Flaws, Pompeii, Laura Palmer, Things We Lost in the Fire, and Oblivion. It's recorded in London, produced by Mark Crew, and of course the band's lead singer, Dan Smith. It went to #11 in the US, was nominated for British Album of the Year at the 2014 Brit Awards. We already covered it, went to #1 in the UK. They initially included 2 other musicians on violin and cello, but dwindled down to the 4 current members. In February 2014, they won the Brit Award for Best Breakthrough Act, as well as being nominated for Best British Group, Single of the Year for Pompeii, and Album of the Year. This one's all over the place with critics, right? Metacritic, who takes all the critic scores and puts them together, it only has a 58. NME gave it a 5 out of 10, but Pop Matters gave it an 8 out of 10. There were some other people that really liked it. All the songs are written by Dan Smith. If you've never joined us before, the music will not be in this video, but it will be at a Vimeo link below. Click on that, follow along with the music. Let's get this thing started. You see it below. We got Pompeii. Ian says, opening with the best-known Bastille track, more than 700 million views on YouTube. This song got the band noticed. Trademark great lead and backing vocals stand out to me, with the percussion being the key to this urgent and fast-paced, brilliant track. The record company obviously knew which track should go first. Only went to #2 in the UK, but it gets a 9.5 from me. It rates every song, which I love. I found it's the 4th single because of the other 3 being released like before the album came out on EPs and different things. It became the band's breakthrough hit. Became the 11th best-selling song that year in the UK, and until June of 2014 was the country's most streamed single of all time. It's also successful worldwide, reaching the top 10 in 15 countries, including the US, where it peaked at #5, their most successful single in the United States, where I live, to date, until Happier reached #2 on both the UK and US charts in October of 2018 and February 2019, respectively. The song's title and lyrics, of course, refer to the Roman town of the same name that was destroyed and buried in the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in AD 79. It was nominated for British Single of the Year at the Brit Awards, as I mentioned a minute ago. And according to Dan Smith, the song is written as a conversation between 2 victims of the eruption of that Mount Vesuvius, stated in an interview, quote, I was reading a book that had some picture of the people who got caught up in the volcanic eruption. And it's just such a kind of dark, powerful image. And it got me thinking about how boring it must have been emotionally after the event, to be sort of stuck in that same position for hundreds and hundreds of years. So the song is sort of an imaginary conversation between these 2 people who are stuck next to each other in their sort of tragic death pose. Now, you see the song below in Spotify, but no. We're going to watch the video to this and several other songs, which is why you need to click on that Vimeo link if you haven't below, so you can follow along with us. But I am going to check out the lyrics as always. Thanks again, Ian. All right, Pompeii. I knew at the end of the video, Dan's eyes would turn black too, right? He's running through, seeing all these people whose eyes are black and here's the thing, right? I mean, for most of you that are watching this, you heard this song on repeat ad nauseum, and maybe you don't appreciate it as much as you would because you just heard it so much, which I get it. Me, I've heard this song, but I haven't heard it just a ton, right? So it's not an Overjoyed. This song is just brilliant, right? Just the way it is structured, the AO, you know, whatever they get that in there, that just kind of makes it catch in your head. Dan talked about this. He said when I was writing Pompeii, I honestly recorded it in my bedroom, and it didn't even occur to me, like, you know, we've been so taken aback and kind of surprised at how it's done and never expected it to be like anywhere in the charts or anything. So yeah, it's a massive surprise. He said it's essentially about fear of stasis and boredom. Being quite a shy, self-conscious person, I was afraid my life might get stuck, but it is just so well done. Next up, we have Things We Lost in the Fire. Ian says, second track in, and the distinctive Bastille sound continues with another cracking track. Nice strings. Doesn't even seem to be going anywhere, but then it gets interesting. Final single from the album only reached 28 in the UK, but following the success of Pompeii, you can see the Virgin Records money has bumped up the video quality a notch or two. I saw also is featured in some TV shows, so Ian gives it a 7.5, and as Ian already gave away, we're going to watch the video on this one as well. All right, Things We Lost in the Fire. Fire is what I want to say. Dan talked about this song. He said, I think a lot of the songs on the album are kind of a big mash of things I've been reading or thinking about, and I think this song, there's sorts of parts of that come from real life. I think I got the idea while I was at university and I was chatting with one of my friends. And, you know, you're new to the uni and you're new friends and you have to find out all about their lives and before. The girl was saying that when she was a kid, her family's house had burned down and they lost everything. And I guess that's things like house fires. You just don't, it's just a thing that happens. But I guess not many people know anyone who that's happened to. I was just mad hearing about it because I think it's fascinating how through life we accumulate stuff and all these kinds of physical memories of all the things we've done. And the idea of losing all those in one big blow, I guess, would be crazy. It just seemed like a perfect metaphor for the end of a relationship. A very high quality, high production video as well. They definitely put some money into that. It was catchy. I mean, it's not Pompeii, but what is, right? But it was definitely catchy. They know how to bring the drum beats in with kind of the harmonies in there with the punched up chorus. So they definitely know how to do that at least 2 songs in. Next up, we have Bad Blood. Ian says 3 tracks in and all 3 are quality. A story of childhood friendships and the inability to escape those character-defining events of youth. Interesting and sinister video, which seems to recast the story. Title tracks, the band obviously rated this song, which was released as the second single and it barely charted as they were a pretty unknown band at the time of release in 2012. Yeah, I went to 90 in the UK and 95 in the US. Ian gives it an 8.0. Remember, this was before Pompeii came out. All right, Bad Blood. A very odd video. I didn't dislike it. It was just very strange. Dan went missing, right? He'd been gone for 34 days. This song really sticks in your head to the, oh, they know how to do this. But I'll tell you what's odd about this song for me is that I knew it. How do I know this song if it didn't really hit in the US? I don't know. I have no idea how I know it, but I do know it. It's a really good song too. I would put it behind Pompeii, obviously, but ahead of Things We Lost in the Fire. But a really, really strong start to this album. Next up, we have Overjoyed. Ian said, video almost has a Twin Peaks feel to it. Another good song and first single from the album. Didn't chart when he gives it a 7.5. The reason why it didn't chart, it had a little promotion, right? It's their only non-charting single from the album, but this is obviously before Pompeii and everything else, and it was on the EP and all that good stuff, but let's check out the video. Overjoyed, I think a really good vocal performance from Dan on this one. I really enjoyed it. Now, as far as it being like Twin Peaks, can you believe this? I've never seen Twin Peaks, but shows this girl walked a long way to bury this book, right? The girl in the video has to walk in her bare feet through all these different places. But then it like flashes into these different things where, I mean, is she working the street in that? I don't know, but, you know, going from the innocence of her bedroom to the street, and how do these things change, right? Thought it was really well done. The song is good. And I think if it would have been released as a single after Pompeii and they were in the mainstream, it would have charted probably quite well. All right, you're going to be stuck with this boring old me for a little while. No videos for a little bit. We have These Streets. Ian says, by now you will have got the idea what a Bastille song sounds like. Not one of the better songs in the album, but the quality of the album means it's still pretty good. A 7.0. This is a quick song, These Streets. Just basically, he's going through the streets, talking about the memories that as he walks these streets, they remind him of, right? And so he's not going to show his face there anymore on some of those that don't have great memories, but just a really good soundscape, man. I mean, if you like the sound, then you're going to like it. And if you don't, I don't know why you're this far into this video, right? Next up, we have Weight of Living Part 2. Now, Part 1 is going to come later, which is actually a hidden track. But Ian says, I really like this frantic and electronic dominated track. Lots of echo, vocal, loop effects really work well. A 9 for me and gets more listens from me than Pompeii. Wow. The Weight of Living Part 2. I can see the electronica. It's very catchy. I mean, it's not Pompeii for me, but I've listened to this album on repeat, so I can see why Ian holds it in high regard. And it's really well done lyrically, right? You miss it in the production and how catchy it is. You know, talking about basically how when you're young, you know, you romanticize, you can't wait to get older. And then when you're older, you're like, wait a minute, what happened here? You know, all that you desire when you were a child was to be old. Now that you are here, suddenly you fear you've lost all control. Do you like the person you've become? It's all crept up on you in the night it got you and plagued your mind. It plagues your mind. Every day that passes faster than the last did. And you'll be old. Soon you'll be old. Do you like the person you're becoming? And it's just, that's exactly how it happens, right? I'm almost 52 years old. In my head, I'm like 20. I'm like, how did this happen? So I thought it was not only catchy, but very well written. Next up, we have Icarus. Some people say Icarus, but it's Icarus by Ian says, all the Bastille hallmarks are present in this track. Perhaps the lack of anything that stands out from the rest of the album holds it back. But solid song, 7.5. If you're not brushed up on your Greek mythology, it's been a minute for me. Icarus was about a young boy who tried to escape with his father. His name was Icarus. From a labyrinth on the island of Crete to escape. His dad constructed wings from wax and the fallen feathers of birds flying above the labyrinth. However, as the chorus of Montrego, Icarus ascended too close to the sun despite his father's warnings, and the wax of his wings melted and caused his fatal fall. Dan, of course, compares this in the lyrics as I'm reading them to a young alcoholic's unhealthy choices to those of Icarus. And Dan said about it, I recorded this in my bedroom on some pretty basic software and then worked on it with a producer friend of mine to make it appear or sound more proper. We added some live instruments and messed around with different sounds. It was good trying different things out and experimenting a bit, especially as I've always wanted to try and be as broad as possible with the sound of this band. I don't think it's bad either. I think it just kind of blends in, as Ian said, but I mean, it's a catchy tune. Next up, we have Oblivion. Ian said a more laid-back song has a haunting and melancholic feel that isn't a bad song on the album, so this is still a 7.0. It was the 8th and final single, went to 82 in the UK. I think the UK was probably just tired of singles coming off of this album. Let's check it out. Oblivion, pretty good track. I don't really know what the lyrics are about. He could be afraid that his the person he's singing to, the person that he loves, is going to commit suicide, maybe. Maybe they got a terminal illness. Maybe it's none of that. Don't really know, but, you know, Bastille sound and pleasant sounding. Next up, we have Flaws. Ian says, third single from Bad Blood. Went to 21 on this re-release. Initially, it was the band's debut single in 2011. It was released again in 2014 after the band's increased profile, but didn't do any better. I get why they kept trying with this one, as it's a brilliant track. Another fantastic vocal performance. If anything, I prefer it to Pompeii. Nice video, 9.5, and he gave it away. We're watching the vid. Flaws, a really good song. I think, you know, basically it's about you can't hide your flaws. They're part of who you are, right? We all have flaws. When all of your flaws and all my flaws are laid out one by one, a wonderful part of the mess that we made, we pick ourselves undone. All of your flaws and all of my flaws, they lie here hand in hand. Once we've inherited, right? Once that we learn, they pass from man to man. And then there's a hole in my soul. I can't feel it. I can't feel it. You have always worn your flaws upon your sleeve, the chorus goes, and I have always buried them deep beneath the ground. She's admitting them. He's keeping them buried. So a really good song. Video quite interesting. Kind of got the total goth look there, and you know, people could see their flaws. People would judge them, and Dan's walking around just fine till he goes and dies again in the sand at the end of it as it comes full circle. Next up, we have Daniel in the Den. Ian says, a biblical tale, beautiful piano and vocalization, but only a 7.0 for him. Daniel in the Den. So he takes the story of Daniel in the Bible and he kind of doesn't change it up, but he adds to it his own family and kind of people wronging you. Yeah, it's fine. I thought I might like it more than I did, but I mean, it's still not a bad song. Next up, we have Laura Palmer. Ian says, this track was initially on the self-released Laura Palmer EP in 2011 with its Twin Peaks-inspired title. It's an effective song. The Kidnap video concept is pretty fun. Re-released as a single, follow-up single to Pompeii. Wow. It had a disappointing chart position, though oddly it did get to number 12 in Belgium. He gives it an 8.0. I found it went to 42 in the UK, but man, whatever single's following up Pompeii, right, is kind of just going to be in a really difficult situation, but we're watching the vid. Dan said about this song, it used to be a lot more electronic than it is now. The video itself is very bizarre. I even just went and looked at the wiki on the video to try to figure out. They don't know what it is either. I mean, it's interesting, right? It keeps your attention, like what's going on. I guess that's the idea of a video, and I'll remember it. A good song. I mean, well done. All right, we got 2 songs left. We got Get Home. Ian says the perfect Bastille sound and production value compensates for my least favorite track on the album. Still gives it a 7.0. All right, Get Home. Because it's about partiers and they got to get themselves back home. It's a little repetitive. I don't want to follow everything Ian has to say here on this album, but I mean, hey, we're both smart guys, so what can I say? But definitely the weakest track on here. It's not bad, but we probably could have done without it. There's 13 tracks on here. Probably could have had 12, right? But let's go to the last track. And you see it, it's a bonus track, or as it was known then, it's a hidden track. Weight of Living Part 1. We had Weight of Living Part 2 back at song number 6. Ian says a more Lion King and Graceland feel to Weight of Living Part 1. The call-out chorus from Part 2 is still there, but the song doesn't quite do it for me like Part 2. Still an 8. Chilled out way to end the album. Weight of Living Part 1. Definitely don't like it as well as Part 2, but still a good song. And, just at the very start, I definitely felt the Graceland, Paul Simon type of feel there, but then it kind of faded for me, which is good because I don't necessarily love that sound. But good song, talking about the things that we go through the living, right? The albatross, the things that we've done maybe that hang over us that we can't quite shake. Kind of just saying we need to let go of those things because there's going to be things in life we do that we regret, right? Or we wish we wouldn't have done. That's part of living. Like, you're not going to be able to avoid that, but you kind of got to be able to put those aside and move on, right? Kind of forgive yourself and move on. All right, that is going to bring me to my favorite tracks. Honorable mentions, we're going to go Things We Lost in the Fire, Weight of Living Part 2, Weight of Living Part 1, although I put Part 2 over Part 1 of Laura Palmer. Faves are going to be, got to be Pompeii, sorry guys, it just is. Bad Blood, Overjoyed, and Flaws. So now we're going to move on to my overall score. Before I do that, Ian says, Dan Smith is a good lyricist and created a really fine debut effort that is inconsistent, but has a number of bangers that lift the whole thing to an 8.0 for me. I feel it's the best of the 4 Bastille albums, though they are all worth listening to. A great way to spend 3/4 of an hour. And I agree with that for sure. I think it's a little uneven, but it's a little uneven just because it's 13 songs, right? 10 songs probably would have been better. Although, like I said, there's not a song on here I really dislike. There's nothing bad on here, anything where you go, oh, wow, what is that? But it's pretty hard because the bangers are so high up there that when you have these real high highs, songs that are still good seem to be worse than they are, right? So it's kind of the trick of the mind to how to rate this thing as well. I'm going to be at a 7.5. I think this is a strong album. I enjoy this type of music. I think Dan really knows how to write a song and arrange it compositionally where it sticks in your head with the use of the drums, especially in there. He knows how to make it stick in your head. So I'm glad that Ian brought this. I didn't know anything about Bastille. I just know Pompeii. I played it earlier for my wife, and she said she didn't even remember that song. So yeah, man, we're old. We're old Americans here, but really good effort. Let me know what your favorite tracks are here. What else should I check out from Bastille? Thanks again, Ian. Until next time, guys, I will see you.